Hey, what's up guys? Tougie here, back again, and this is going to be a fun one, I'm sure. The St. Louis Blues take Game 4 by the score of 4-2, tying this series up at 2 games apiece. And for the 4th straight time in the 2019 Stanley Cup Final, I can say that the best team won. However, for the 4th straight time, we're also going to start off this video by talking about officiating. Yay! At the end of the last review, I mentioned that Greg Berube had made comments to the media about the state of the officiating, which I still find to be absolutely hilarious and just precious, especially when you look at the power play numbers. Game 3 specifically, the Bruins 4 for 4, the Blues 1 for 5. There's no major discrepancy in the calls, as it is. One team will always have the advantage. It's not often at the end of a series you go, each team had 18 power plays. Very, very rare. That's just the way it works. It's not on the refs that the Blues penalty kill was anemic in Game 3. It's not on the refs that the Blues power play has been miserable throughout this series. Yet, it worked. Greg Berube complaining about the officials worked, and this game was absolutely called differently because of it. Of course, and I'll say this, throughout a hockey game, you'll have infractions that go uncalled. I'll point out Joel Edmondson, again, hitting David Backes high, because for whatever reason, boy, does Joel Edmondson not like David Backes. But more specifically, I'll point out 3 no calls involving Alex Pietrangelo. Holding the stick in the first and third periods, you're seeing on screen right now the infraction from the first period that went uncalled, and later on in the game, a sleeper slam on David Backes straight out of a wrestling video game. Now, players get knocked over in a scrum all the time. That was just a tad bit extra, don't you think? Just a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to say it, and people can be like, oh, well, the Bruins, they deserve their reputation, and that's fine. If that was done in reverse, if David Backes does that to a Blues key player, whether that be Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, or Alex Pietrangelo himself, there is uproar. Those dirty Bruins, they did it again. So, you know, yeah, as a Bruins fan, it can be frustrating, even though, and again, I have preached that the entire postseason and throughout this entire series that, hey, with the officiating, you just got to be like, wow, that was kind of bullshit in my opinion, and you let it go. And that's what I'm doing here, because with all of that said, I'm not arguing that officiating cost the Bruins in this game. Hell, they had 2 chances on the power play tonight and looked nowhere near as dangerous as they did in Game 3. The first thing that I said was the score, right? And that the better team won. And the fact is, the Bruins were absolutely outplayed. We'll get into more specific stats later on here in this video. But like I mentioned, the game was called differently. It's undisputable. And to this entire point, if you're upset that I'm being a biased homer, Greg Berube deserves credit for his Jedi mind tricks. No matter how hilarious I think it is for a coach to complain about the calls against his team specifically when this league has been a circus all year long, and especially in the playoffs, no matter how hilarious I think that is, the bottom line is it worked, and that is one of the reasons why the Blues were able to win this game, but it certainly wasn't the sole reason. Again, the Blues were the better team, and we jump in to the first period. 43 seconds in, Ryan O'Reilly scores on a power play. Vince Dunn back in the lineup, throws one on from the point. It's deflected by Zach Sanford, who's still in the lineup. O'Reilly scores on that wraparound, beats Tuukka Rask 1-0 St. Louis. However, the Bruins would battle back. Danton Heinen cuts back at the blue line while the Bruins make a line change. He gets absolutely decked by Brayden Schenn, I believe, but the puck finds Zdeno Chara down the half wall, throws one on. Charlie Coyle is there, tucks home the rebound, his 9th of the playoffs. He now has a 3-game goal streak. Wild fans, I don't know how you would feel about this, whether or not you're upset at how well he's doing or being happy for him, but Charlie Coyle ties this game. However, the Blues would regain the lead before the end of the first period. A similar play. Blues line change. Brayden Schenn has the puck, dishes it back to the point. Would not have gotten to Alex Pietrangelo had there not been a nifty stick lift by Jaden Schwartz. But Pietrangelo gets it. Quick little drag to his left to open up the shooting lane. The rebound on the shot goes straight to Vladimir Tarasenko, who buries it, and the Blues take the lead into intermission. We go to the second period where the Blues dominated, at least for one ridiculous stretch that felt like 15 minutes of sustained pressure. But the second period highlighted by one thing in particular, an injury to Bruins captain Zdeno Chara, a Brayden Schenn shot. I have mentioned him a lot already, and we're not done. A Brayden Schenn shot ramps up, hits Chara in the mouth. We'll talk more about it in a little bit, but this would be it for Chara in the game. Few minutes later, Vladimir Tarasenko with just a sell job on this one. Although you could argue that they were trolling a little bit, where Berube talks about the officiating, and then we have a couple instances of Blues players embellishing, if not outright diving. And this was the first example of ridiculous embellishment by Tarasenko. Now, really, perspective is key when you talk about officiating. If you're a Bruins fan, what a guy. Look at them, selling that, embellishing the hell out of that. And if you're a Blues fan, you're going to be like, yeah, well, that's because officiating has been bullshit, and that's what the Blues should do to get even. So it's all about perspective. But then, no denying, Tarasenko sold it. And as a Bruins fan, he sold it well. I give him credit, straight from the Ric Flair school of I just cut my forehead and God. It was beautiful. However, karma would prevail. I was looking at the dog. I'm getting a bit too riled up, pup. I'm sorry. Karma would prevail. Shorthanded, Marchand, Bergeron, he throws one on, and Brandon Carlo, of all people, tucks home the rebound, and the Bruins tie this game shorthanded. Carlo, the 20th Bruins player to score in this postseason, which is insane. And just like that, heading into the third period, this is anybody's ball game. Unfortunately for the Bruins, it was very much the Blues ball game. An absolutely dominant period. We start things off, though, Zdeno Chara on the bench, full shield, but he does not play. His future in the series is in doubt, and if you ask me, I mean, it's not fair to make assumptions about injuries, but he has to have a broken jaw. He has to. And if you have a broken jaw, it's going to affect your ability to communicate. It's going to affect your breathing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of Chara in the series. Maybe he does go the way of, if he can, gets it fucking wired shut and plays. Who the hell knows? But his future, at least as it stands, is in doubt. But if I had to assume, it's a broken jaw. And then you look, I mean, Matt Grzelcyk's still out. We don't know. I mean, and I would assume it would have been nearly a week. I can't say with certainty how long it's been since Grzelcyk sustained the injury, but, concussion-wise, they're not going to rush him back, nor should they. I don't care about a Stanley Cup win if Matt Grzelcyk can't play with his grandkids in 30 years. But, Grzelcyk's out. Still probably. Chara might be out. Kevin Miller's already out. And if that's the case, if all three of those guys are unavailable, the Bruins will be relying on Steven Kampfer, Urho Vakanainen, or even Lozon to step up and fill in a spot in this lineup, which is a scary thought for Bruins fans. We jump, though, later on into the third period. Marcus Johansson doesn't shoot, tries to make that one extra pass, which was a Bruins staple and has been throughout the playoffs. Gets broken up, leads to Danton Heinen tripping Brayden Schenn. Debatable with how easy Schenn went down, and especially, you don't exactly get the benefit of the doubt after what Tarasenko did later. And then, a little bit later on, Jordan Binnington flops in a big-time way after Brad Marchand gives him an albeit unnecessary swipe. Although, I'll argue, you don't see Tuukka doing that. Just saying. You don't see Tuukka Rask with the amount of pressure he's been under trying to draw calls like that. Just saying. And it's kind of ironic considering one of the team's coaches just complained about officiating. I'm sorry. And you know what? Again, it's about perspective. If you're a Bruins fan, if you're a Blues fan, quit your whining. But I find it legitimately hilarious. But Jordan Binnington flops, leads to nothing ultimately. However, the Blues would score the game-winning goal not that long afterwards. A bad line change for the Bruins. Pietrangelo takes a shot. The rebound is there for Ryan O'Reilly, his second of the game. Brayden Schenn. How many times have I said, man, if you've been adding the over-under on Schenn, I mean, you might be winning some money at this point. Brayden Schenn with the empty net goal to tie it, or to seal it, I should say. 4-2 final. Ball game for the Blues. Now, in summary here, And I want to mention something Greg Berube said at the game. Let me read this quote. "First of all, our discipline was a lot better. And second of all, we were... hold on. Second of all, we were relentless." I don't know why Greg Berube threw the word just in there, but I credit the reporter for, marking that down perfectly. "I thought tonight we didn't stop for 60 minutes. Obviously, I disagree about the discipline part. I'd factor that more into your Jedi mind tricks worked, unless unless in terms of discipline, we're factoring in Braden Shen not launching himself at Pasternak like an intercontinental ballistic missile, in which case, yes, your discipline was a hell of a lot better. But to the other point, he is absolutely correct. The Blues came to play, and it was a must-win game. You go down 3-1 heading back to Boston, that's a rough situation. Someone like Oscar Sundqvist back in the lineup, he came to play. That forecheck was relentless. The Blues' big players delivered, which is easy to do when you don't sit in the box like you could have, Pietrangelo. But I digress. I mentioned the third period being anyone's game, and these are the stats I was talking about. Turns out it was the Blues game. 13-4 in shots. They ultimately finished the game with doubling up on the slot chances in general. 19-8 in terms of slot chances for the Bruins. The Blues. I needed a couple of brews after this game. I don't even drink. The shots were outright 38-23 for the Blues. The game could have been out of hand, flat out, obviously, if Tuukka Rask had not been as good as he was. Like I said, I will make my comments and jabs towards Berube about the officiating. I will point out some obvious calls that were missed, but in no way whatsoever am I blaming officiating. The Blues were just a much better team tonight. And for the Blues now, you've tied this series up. Momentum is obviously in your favor. Yet again, the Bruins have had a lead in this series twice, and both times it's disappeared. However, it's not a skies falling situation for Boston. Both of the losses, close games. You have that going for you. You weren't blown out like you blew out the Blues in Game 3. And, like it or not, the Bruins were down to 5 defenders in both of those losses. Now, does that take away from the Blues? No. And even if you think I'm just bold-faced lying to you with that statement, and it does actually, why care? I'm pretty sure the Blues don't. To hell with credit. Facts are facts. The Bruins were down to 5D, and St. Louis has won twice. End of story. And I often make, I wanted to bring this up as well. I often make a statement, and in speaking to the rest of the series moving forward, for the Blues, it speaks for itself, right? Tremendous game tonight. Top line guys came to play. If you focus on the Bruins, though, and I often make this statement with franchise mode in a similar 2-2 situation, that when a team, or when a team in general or a group of players on a team are underperforming, but that team is still there's that little bit of promise if those players get going. And if you're a Bruins fan, you're hoping that the top 6 figures out some sort of consistency, because Lord knows it wasn't really there tonight. And if the Blues keep the pressure up on the breakouts like they've been doing, and you're going to need the top 6 too. They have to be better, because as much as I love them, you can't rely on the Bruins' fourth line to, consistently break the puck out, especially when you're missing a better puck mover like Matt Grzelcyk, and that fourth line in particular was dominated tonight, but we don't really have to talk about that. And, one other thing. Screw it. If I'm going to go along the lines of not giving the Blues proper credit, which I would disagree with, I think that's all I've done is verbally blow them in this little recap here. Jordan Binnington stopped 21 of 23 and survived a deadly attack from Brad Marchand. Despite that, he looked kind of shaky. This win will help his confidence, but he is not a brick wall by any stretch of the imagination. So I think, again, I said this earlier, but it's true. Perspective is key. If you're the Blues, you are tied in this series off the back of a tremendous performance. Things are looking pretty damn good for you. If you're the Bruins, you can view it one of two ways. Oh my God, they're screwed. Or, there are some promising signs there. And that is how I'm choosing to view it, because I'm not exactly sweating bullets just yet. I'm not going to sweat bullets until the Bruins are up 3-2 in Game 6 and then blow, a lead in 17 seconds. That's when I'll sweat it. I'll sweat it when they're down 28-3 to the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. Takes a little bit more than a series being tied at 2 games apiece for me to start sweating and being nervous. Although, let's be honest, you don't earn this double chin by not sitting here, so I sweat all the time. Oh, God, yes, self-deprecation. Bottom line, Blues have momentum going back to St. Louis, or going back to Boston for Game 5, much like they had going back to St. Louis for Game 3, and we know how that worked out. So we'll see what happens this time and just how much the extra day off, I should say, how much the extra day off will affect both teams. And especially for the Bruins, it's an eye on the injury situation to not only Zdeno Chara, but Matt Grzelcyk as well. We are done here for now. It was a video. it was an interesting talk. I'm glad we have these talks, you and I, these discussions. It's great. Let me know what you think down in the comments below as far as the game is concerned, the series as a whole. Zdeno Chara, Berube complaining about the refs, whether or not you thought certain players dove, whether or not certain calls could have been made. Your prediction for Game 5 on Thursday. Is it Thursday? Tuesday? What is it, Friday or Thursday? Jesus Christ. Regardless, they're making us wait far too long. I think it's actually Thursday. There might not be the extra day off. So the Bruins are screwed then, is what we're hearing. I'll see you guys soon. Drop a like on the video, because that's all YouTube cares about. Check out everything in the description. Game 5 should be fun.